Moderator, Colleen Hotchkiss. She's the EVP and Managing Director of Zenith. Also, we have Molly Garris. She's the Senior Manager of ECommerce and Marketing at Dole. Stephanie Pegler, the ECommerce Digital Media Manager at Pepsi. And Courtney Redford, the Digital Advertising Manager at Radio Systems Corporation, which isn't what it sounds like until I have to explain that to you. So anyway, take it away, guys.
Great. Well, thank you.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I forgot Ava. We have 4 people. Ava Safar, did I say that right? Safar? Oh, over here? Okay. Director of Brand Marketing at Commerce. Director of Brand Marketing and Commerce at Pilgrims. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Thanks to, first, I want to start off by saying thanks to Media Post and our sponsors. It's been a great couple of days. And I think one of the benefits, obviously, is not only the fun activities, but the networking and getting to know other experts. So I'm very excited to be here hosting this panel with these lovely ladies. You saved me from having to do intros. So I guess we can get right on into the questions. One of the things that we've been talking about since even before we arrived here at Santa Barbara, but also, as we've been here, is just how much the shopping journey has changed and how much COVID has really impacted that. With the rise of things like BOPIS, curbside pickup, the increased delivery options to consumers, how is it changing your media mixes and how you're approaching things with consumers? So Stephanie, you want to take this one to start and then others will chime in?
Absolutely. Thank you. So I'm going to start by sort of stating the obvious. I think all of us in this room know that one of the biggest things that has really accelerated through the pandemic is the blurring of the world or the lines between how people are shopping, between e-commerce, online, brick and mortar, in store. That was happening before. It's even more so now, really blurred between the two. And so, omni means everywhere. Shoppers are everywhere. And so, my team actually in our job titles or job descriptions is the word omni-channel. We manage omni-channel media. And so I think that's been a really interesting kind of shift that we've had to make in a good way, where we're not, we're trying to get away from some of the silos that used to exist and really just meet shoppers where they are and manage our media in that same way. So that's been a really great opportunity that's come.
Terrific. Eva, you want to build on that?
Well, certainly not only on the retail side with our consumers, but the shift also occurred within our business. So I'm in the food production business, and a lot of our operations were geared towards food service restaurants. And so with the pandemic and the shutdown of restaurants and the incredible rise in empty shelves of consumers buying CPG products, we shifted our focus into more retail products. So not only did our media mix shift, our product mix shift, and everything has happened inside of the last year. So everything Stephanie just mentioned with the media and approaching consumers in a new way, especially in our company, it was very, very new.
Wow, that's a lot of change. Molly?
Similar, we have food service and, direct to consumer type business and saw that shift as well. But for me on the consumer side, I was really fortunate to come into Dole right as everybody was pantry stocking. The pineapple juice, the fruit cups, the pineapple in a can. And, normally you would go with an always on strategy, or you would really lean into key holiday moments. But it was such a enlightening experience to suddenly switch to how do we retain those households that we brought in when they were pantry stocking? How do we get them to choose Dole, over a private label or another brand? So I think for us, it was a huge shift in the types of tactics that we were doing, the KPIs that we were looking at, and honestly, the messaging as well. It wasn't about, back to school, guys. School looks a lot different now. So it's really about, anytime snacking is sort of the shift that we've taken with some of the messaging. But I think it's also really shifted timing because of all of the inventory outages that everybody has experienced, right, with all of the supply chain issues. So I think for me, it's really been, flexing media on and off where we've got inventory. There's times where we might be, running a little bit low on a certain item, and I don't want to go and advertise that and drive demand to that. When it hits the shelves, it's going to sell itself. So it's really taken a lot of agility and speed, I think, for a 170-year-old business to learn. So it's been exciting.
That's great. And, it's really interesting that you talk about the different tactics that we're using and how we're thinking about that. And I think we see that too in terms of the opportunities that we have from our media partners and vendors. Retail media networks who might have once only been considered more of a lower funnel tactic are increasingly expanding their offerings, offering us things like over-the-top video and connected TV to be able to drive that upper funnel awareness. Equally, we're seeing non-commerce endemic partners like an NBCU who is really just driving shoppability across the entirety of their portfolio. So how are you guys balancing that when you've got kind of the blurring of the lines, as Stephanie said earlier, not only in, across how consumers are shopping, but across the offerings that we have and the ways to reach those consumers?
Yeah, I can kick that one off too. So I would say right now is kind of like the wild, wild west in terms of capabilities across all different types of media partners. And that makes it really fun. And I think it's a time where we can really lean in to kind of shift and shape strategy. So one thing that we really focus on at PepsiCo is testing and learning, the concept of, setting up really strategic, measurable tests to pressure test what the partners are coming to us with, right? So if there's sort of a pitch that something, is going to work for lower funnel conversion driving tactics, let's try it. Let's see, let's set up some sort of A/B test where we can measure for me, it means measuring the impact of sales at a particular retailer, right? So that's what we really focus on is those tests and A/B testing and just trying things. I think we're in this moment where it's happening. These shifts are happening in capabilities. So now we kind of have to see what works and what sticks. And I would also just say that I think this evolution of capabilities across partners is leading to an even bigger importance on figuring out, within an organization, knowing your consumer touch point journey and knowing what's happening from a national brand perspective and from an e-commerce perspective and a divisional, all the different touch points, just being really connected. It sounds like the most simple thing, but I think it's not in practice, right? So it's sort of like driving some change from within in terms of mapping out that journey and making sure that we're thinking of our journey from a consumer standpoint and less about, the silos that we might be in within the company and all the different people that are handling media touch points.
I think that's a really good point. The silos are definitely something that we're seeing a lot of folks and advertisers having to overcome, and all at the end game of kind of meeting those consumers where they are so they don't feel that. Molly, do you want to build a little bit on this from a Dole perspective and what you're seeing?
Yeah, I mean, speaking of silos, I mean, my role is really at the bottom of the funnel historically, right? E-commerce, shopper media. And, normally when you get, your partnership with Amazon Media or Walmart Connect, I'm kind of the first point of contact, but the dollar amounts that they're looking for from us to commit are rising, right? And they're such important platforms that it can't be one person's budget or one person's ideas going into, building our brand. So, this is where, as they increase their offerings, as they make it more measurable, that data is really valuable to us. And our strategy on those platforms is critical. And we do see lift, outside of those. So if you run, Amazon OTT, we often see in-store lift as well. So I think it really requires a lot of holistic planning, really coming together with, brand marketers, with your traditional media, and really looking at what are our plans going to be across all of these, where it used to be just, all right, you're the one that works on Amazon Media, go. So it's really about breaking down those silos.
Eva, are you seeing those same things?
Oh, certainly. I can add a little bit to that. In my company, again, we're very commodity minded in how we are. So even calling ourselves CPG is sort of a new thing in our group. And that also goes to the buyers within the retailers that we're talking to. So we're talking to meat department buyers. They're not traditional CPG folks. And educating them on what their own media networks can offer for their success is another layer of education that has been fast forwarded over the last few months, really. And we're leaning in. We have partnered with Instacart and have done a great job for our retailers, and they don't even quite understand that yet. So we're trying to explain to them what we're doing as a brand and as a third party to supplement their business. But also working within the retailer networks, we also have our strategies within those. and then bringing it back to them in our buyers, which are still controlling where 80–90% of customers are going to buy product is in store, but really taking the opportunity online to show ourselves a little bit bigger, a little bit more available, and within all the touch points for the consumer to make it seamless. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys have experienced any of the big box retailer where you buy something online and you return it to the store and they actually tell you things like, oh, that's a different division. It's a very kind of, not the best user experience, but as those are becoming seamless now, they have really no other choice but to get there. So we're leaning in as a brand as well.
That's great. I actually forgot my mouse on the way out here, and I was able to have my car stop up for curbside pickup at Best Buy to get one on my way to the hotel. So certainly feeling the opportunities that exist now that maybe weren't as popular before. So before we get into the next question, which I'm excited about, Lisa did say, Courtney, your job and your company is a bit different than how it sounds. So I wanted to give you a minute to talk about that.
Yeah, so Radio Systems Corporation is not very descriptive of our brand. So we are the leading global pet product manufacturer. So our brands include Invisible Fence, Pet Safe, Sport Dog, Premier Pet, and Ergo. So if you have a cat or dog, you've probably bought one of our products. We're in brick and mortar, e-commerce, really any of the big pet retailers. And then we sell D2C as well. And I oversee all of our advertising, including D2C and then our retail support as well.
Thank you. So now the answers will make more sense to everybody in the crowd. So this question is particularly exciting, and actually the results that were just shared earlier speak a lot to it, because we saw social media being a really important channel in terms of driving businesses for CPGs, post-pandemic and as we enter the new world. So how important is social commerce to your business?
Yeah, social commerce is critical for our business, and being in the pet industry, people go to social, and when they see cats and dogs, they're excited to see them and excited to engage with the content. So social is critical, and we have kind of our what I would say kind of our core channels, both from an organic and from a paid perspective, like, love them or hate them, Facebook and Instagram. We have kind of Pinterest as one of our core channels. And then we do often a lot of testing with more niche channels like Twitch. We've done a lot of testing with them. Snapchat, TikTok, and then even kind of unexpected channels like Nextdoor, which is an app that people use for their neighborhood, and also things like Tinder. So, being in the pet space, we can do a lot of testing with channels like that, but I would say social it's core for our business, and we're always looking for new channels to test out. But one of the biggest things I would say is that even though we are testing new channels, the content is not the same across them. So we're not going to take a video that we create for Facebook and upload it to TikTok and measure those the same, because the customer is different, the content's different. So from a content perspective, I would say that's kind of the main priority as you're looking across all these channels. And for us, it's kind of 3 different buckets. We have our branded content that we produce in-house, our influencer content that kind of has more of a celebrity backing, and then very raw UGC unboxing, feeling like it's something from the customer. So social is very critical, but the content plays a huge role in the success of that channel too.
Absolutely. And I think too, social is one of those areas that really can play that full funnel role, right? So we're seeing places where social is creating untapped demand, or demand we didn't know existed even, and then driving through the funnel. So Eva, I think you have a great example of that, actually.
Yeah, I shared this at the roundtable with the folks that were on the team. So January 13th or something like that, we have a product called Just Bare lightly breaded chicken breast bites that are available at Costco. And there's an influencer on TikTok, Costco Mama of 3. And hacks are super huge on these things, and especially food hacks when we've all been sitting at home making 3 meals a day and snacks, right? And so this individual found this product, and the hack that she was sharing was that it is restaurant quality product at home. And she mentioned Chick-fil-A, and she mentioned, which is also another iconic, very popular brand, and how this product can be found at Costco. I kid you not, we were sold out in minutes. We were struggling to stay in one division of Costco. We suddenly went into nationwide, and an innovation pipeline behind it, and other retailers behind it. So talk about trying to stay ahead of supply chain, of working with our operations folks, managing demand when it comes to like this significant. And the crazy thing is we've been radio silent on social since March of 2020. When the pandemic hit, we deactivated all of our accounts and sort of stopped doing that. And this individual took us back up in a significant way. And I think there was also discussion around, you know, how long do you stick with an individual as an influencer? We didn't ask her to do this, so 100% organic. And if you like are looking on TikTok and do Just Bare Chicken, it is pages and pages and pages. She started a challenge where people are buying product from Chick-fil-A and testing it within ours. Moms are using our product and putting it in Chick-fil-A boxes to pass it off to the kids and saving money. Product took off on Instacart, so thanks for being there for us. And we actually had to turn off media at some point because we couldn't supply the product in time. So it really opened our eyes, again, in the industry to the importance of these influencers and being socially relevant and listening to what they want.
So TikTok really does make us buy it. But with all, we've obviously talked about a variety of ways of reaching consumers, a variety of new mechanisms for delivering and meeting their demand. You know, one of the things that's important as we're evaluating all these opportunities is how we're measuring success, especially as all the platforms are different. So Courtney, you want to talk a little bit about that? Start us off there.
Yeah. So, you know, for us, because we do a lot of testing with some of those platforms that I mentioned that are more niche, it's so important to set the stage before you go into that with your senior leadership and your stakeholders that you can't measure those platforms all equally. You know, we're not looking at TikTok the same way that we look at Facebook and Instagram. And when we do a partnership with things like Tinder, you know, we know that the conversion may not happen right away. So it's more about what kind of engagement can we get or what does the click-through rate look like? So I think the biggest thing is just before you go into a test with a platform to, one, figure out what you want to learn in it and how you're going to measure it, but then making sure that that's communicated throughout the organization so you don't have unmet expectations at the end.
Super important. Eva, how are you guys looking at success on your end?
Yeah, so recently we've also invested in machine learning with our success on retailer networks, on Instacart, on Amazon platforms, and really trying to optimize every dollar that we have on those platforms.
Awesome.
And then I'll take it in a slightly different angle in terms of a gap or what I would call more of an exciting opportunity area, tying back to this idea of, you know, how do we start to do things a little bit differently in terms of what historical silos have been with how companies run media? I think there's a big opportunity to understand what the impact of more coordinated, you know, holistic media planning, what that is. Like first in terms of sales impact, right? So through tools like MMM or, you know, looking at actual impact on volume and sales, of course, but then also kind of more long-term, what is the, you know, what are the efficiencies that come from these different ways of working as an organization? I think there's just two really interesting components there. And, you know, as PepsiCo, I think it's something that I know we're already, it's bubbling up, we're talking about it. But I think it's something that, you know, we and the industry really as a whole is gonna, it's kind of a white space right now, I think. There's not a clear-cut way to measure that. So I think that's really exciting. And then I'll just add on with one more kind of like tactical or something that we're doing today, which is, you know, in this realm, like I said before, I'm really, you know, my role, I'm focused on driving sales impact at retailer X, right? And so, you know, we look at, historically, we've always looked at things like sales lift and incremental return. Those are our holy grail, but we always look at, those are shorter term metrics, right? So what we're trying to shift to now is a balance of looking at both those types of metrics, but also things like lifetime value. So what is that long-term, that thing you can't see right now, but that long-term impact of acquiring a new, you know, Pepsi buyer or a new Doritos buyer, whatever it is. So that's been a really fun kind of new way to look at data that we are implementing now, and just has been a cool journey to balance the short term and long term.
That's super interesting too, right? Because about the customers you're acquiring, about what does that new audience base look like, and how does that shape your future from even like a product development standpoint? Because that might look different too. Well, I think we are probably close to time, so I'm going to wrap us up with one final question, and that would be really, What have we learned over the past 12 to 18 months in terms of what you would stop, start, and continue? So I'm going to start with the stop, Eva, and I'll let you take that one.
Stop saying when things go back to normal. Everything I've heard from IRI and Nielsen and studies upon studies talk about the disruption that we've had in our life has really changed everything that we're doing. And as humans, as people, as consumers, anything that we do longer than I think it's like 8 weeks or 6 months or whatever it is becomes a habit. And we've learned a lot of new habits that have solved some problems for us and accelerated us into getting there. I think we heard that throughout the entire last couple of days. And I think there's new things happening. So forget what you knew before, forget the trends that you were expecting. We're on a whole new world here.
Awesome. So start, Molly. For me at the bottom of the funnel, a lot of times I am just looking to convert what we have in store, but with all of the different inventory outages, supply chain challenges, I've become besties with supply chain. I have them on text and every single week talk through where we have a couple of little outages or light inventory across all of our retailers. So knowing that I've got, media running across Walmart, Amazon, Instacart, et cetera, like where might we have gaps? Because I don't want to go heavy on advertising. Or have you heard that our competitors are, say, light on mandarin oranges? Then I'm going to go hard. It's just really being agile and really closely connected, which can be really hard when a lot of us are working remote. But it's been such a great experience doing that. And it's definitely something that I want to do more of and continue. We probably should have already been doing that. E-commerce was a little bit smaller, but now that it's really, become a sticky behavior, we want to stay really closely connected with those partners. Absolutely. And then rounding us out, continue, Stephanie.
Yeah, so 2 quick things on continue. I think first is continue to push capabilities. I think we're in this, like we talked about earlier, this is the time when things are malleable, capabilities are being built like in this moment as consumer shopping behaviors are changing and the media landscape is changing. So I would say just continuing to lean into partnerships with media partners, whether it's retail media networks or any other third-party media partners, just really leaning into the opportunity here that comes with kind of building things together. And then I think secondly, just continuing to be very consumer centric when it comes to media planning. I think it can be easy to get out of that and get into kind of, again, like you have this job to do within the org, but I think to kind of flip it to the other side of the table and think about how is a consumer seeing all of our messages all together and what is that journey? I think that needs to be really top of mind. And Todd had some great examples earlier of how as brand Pepsi, how they're staying on top of that consumer lens. But I think from like a tactical media perspective, that's something we need to continue to do as well.
Terrific. Well, thank you to my great panelists. I think you guys have all done a great job. I've certainly learned from you. I don't know if we have time for questions.
Yes, of
we're
course,
happy to
always
take
time
them.
for questions. Does anyone have a question? Oh, got some hands up here. Hold on.
Thank you. I have a question for Molly. Sorry.
I just said, I hope it's a question for Eva.
Thank you.
I'm curious, you were talking about the retail marketing and some of the tactics that you guys are working on with specific retailers like Walmart, maybe Kroger, PepsiCo. And you've mentioned that they are pretty much increasing the commitments that they require from the brands, which is true. So in light of those increased commitments, what are your tactics that you really, the mix of the tactics that you would move forward, say, into 22 and 23, that would help you drive trial and velocities, but specifically with retailers? What are those, like just sponsored search, banners, like anything that you can share from your experience?
Yeah, so it really depends on what sort of product or product line we're looking at, because like I mentioned, we had a lot of products that were, just kind of old favorites that maybe you haven't bought in a while, and they were just going crazy during COVID pantry stocking. So anyone that's ever mixed a cocktail with pineapple juice, it's just really delicious. So I think, you know, what we're looking at is a lot of re-engagement and retention. So, you know, content that might have recipes or, you know, social posts that are like really quick, putting together, you know, quick meal solutions. Maybe not as viral as the TikTok challenge, but we're working on it. But yeah. Well, we're gonna partner with pineapple. It would be delicious. Some pineapple slices. But yeah, so I think what's really interesting is obviously like Amazon is just way out in front in terms of capabilities and full funnel. So I mean, some of the tactics I'm doing is a lot of retargeting through their DSP ads. And Amazon Fresh has offered a lot of new capabilities too. So really looking at like, what does our merch plan look like versus marketing? How do they tie together with deals, things like that? And it's really about layering. Whereas some of the smaller retailers that are sort of just catching up, I think for them, sometimes you just start with search because that's usually where my first dollar goes, and sort of see and start to lean in and kind of really look for things that they can provide ROI and also data for, because sometimes they'll say, well, we don't have measurement for that yet. I really need that test and learn that Stephanie was talking about. So I think it's really coming together with your different business teams to say, okay, for your business line, you know, this is a new item and you're looking to drive awareness. Here are the different capabilities and, you know, where do you see your target market, and you know, what does that look like in the broader scheme of your media mix? Whereas other lines that are more retention focused, I look towards those tactics and see, you know, what's available. And then we sit down and sort of holistically, we're currently holistically planning our 2022, but trying to stay nimble too, right? Because there's always new things that are coming that we want to be able to quickly pivot and try.
Okay, we have another question here.
Hi, my name is Melissa. I work for Neutrogena. And first of all, I just wanted to say thank you. I found this panel incredibly informative and also reassuring that we're all going through the same things and asking the same questions. So it's been very enlightening. I had a question, and I don't want to specifically call out one of the panelists because I'd be curious to hear any answers. As we think about the consumer journey and how the consumer is changing and the different platforms that they're engaging with and going to learn, I agree that we are working to create content that is native to the platform because we don't just want to copy paste. We want to ensure that it performs as best as possible. But from a campaign and messaging perspective, I'm curious, do you see that you're changing your messaging and your campaign per platform, or more you're trying to take that same message to create that cohesive funnel but make it specific for the platform, or does it depend?
Yeah, I can take that. So we do adapt it. You know, we just actually did a campaign recently where we had the overarching campaign message, you know, and that ran across CTV and kind of your more, what I would call it, blanket approaches. But then as we went into things like Twitch, and then even as we were targeting certain audiences on other channels, we did take that creative and adapt it in the way that that customer would be speaking on that channel. That way it wasn't disruptive, but it was still kind of laddering up to the overarching message. So if they did see the CTV ad and then they, you know, went on to Twitch and saw a mid-roll ad, it would not be jarring from the overarching message, but it would be adaptive to how they would be talking.
Anybody else want to add to that?
I'll just add really quick. I would second that. I think that's where a big opportunity in my mind comes in terms of just getting to that cohesion, right? And maybe it's different teams or, you know, different touch points that are managing different kind of pieces of the media, but for there to be that connection point so that it makes sense, again, from the consumer lens and what they're seeing. You don't want someone to be seeing a completely different thematic or, you know, totally different kind of message. In most cases, you wouldn't really want that. So yeah, just wanted to second that. Agree.
All right, great. Well, you guys were awesome. I think we can give them all a round of applause. Thank you, Colleen, Stephanie, Courtney, Eva, and Mom.